This podcast was prepared by the Digression Method. The opinions expressed in this show are those of the hosts and do not reflect the view of the scientists, the Department of Education, or the United States Science Board.
From the outermost edges of space, with a destiny so strong.
Get over how important you think you are in the scheme of the universe, and embrace the universe a little bit more.
They're back, and this time, even funnier.
Prepare to enter a zone where your mind cannot follow the signs.
Right before your eyes, the secrets of the universe will be revealed.
Back in the 80s or 90s, I was involved in an experiment that basically we were propelled forward in time, and I traveled to 600 years in the future.
How far would you go?
This is ingrained into my DNA. This is what I have to do because I don't know how to be a human without doing these things.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Here we are. I think.
Welcome back.
We're back.
Season 3 episode.
Question mark.
Question mark?
I guess.
Or meh?
We've had many attempts to get this ball rolling, and
all attempts that should have at least been fixed on the first day. I didn't realize my mic, the internal settings of it were turned down. Having to figure out OBS, it's been
But it's a new system, so getting used to that.
It's far different than what we did last season. Last two seasons, it was just Audacity, and we put it up, and I'd always be like, ugh. Anytime somebody's like, and we'll have a picture posted, because I have to go in and find that part and put the picture, and it was so annoying. But now we're doing OBS. We're live right now. We're live streaming on YouTube, just the Digression Method on YouTube. We'll set out alerts and stuff on Facebook.com and Twitter.com and everything. I don't know why I added the .com. It should have been Facebook.com/.
It's important.
Method.
It's important.
People will forget that that's an
because we took the
.com.
www away, so we can't just be like Twitter. You have to still because it's an internet.
You gotta
thing.
at least throw the com in there. That
.com or what do you have then?
I should have just Facebook.com/digression method, but whatever. We're still figuring it out.
If I heard just straight Twitter, I'd be like the app, but no, you're on the website. You
have to go on the computer only. Yeah, that's the only way. No.
You have to be the computer. You can use your phone, but you have to do it through the Google. You can't use the app. You have to be one of those people that does the website on your phone.
Safari on your phone only.
That's how it works.
No,
I said what I meant. But Google. I said what I meant.
Yeah. We're back though.
Digressing
already on nothing.
Digressing already within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, well,
that's what happens.
When we were trying to figure out the swap from Science Talks to the new name, we couldn't figure out anything, and it was tough because we just couldn't decide on anything, and nothing felt right. But it's the digression method's perfect because it's scientific method. You digress on stuff. That's all we do. It's just we start here, and we don't end up where exactly we want to be, but we're somewhere.
Or we end up exactly where we want to be.
Yeah, we're somewhere.
We're talking about science, but also in a way telling you a story.
Yeah, we do have
It's creative commentary on articles.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. I like that.
It's creative commentary. That's good.
Yeah, we're not doing any experiments or nothing, but we are appreciating science, and I just like getting.
We're just three guys who don't know much about science, trying to learn a bit more.
Yeah. Except I'm actually in science classes, so I'm learning double.
I mean, I am going for a Bachelor of Science.
No.
So.
That's what I'll be getting to. The sciences. And see, we're not like our old pal Maxwell Atkins, who was like uber scientist. But that's
actual physicist.
that was when I found out that that's what he was. I just thought it was so cool. It's like, man, I can't say little Maxwell. It's not like he's so much younger than us, but it's just like Max graduated.
Well,
with
he like wanted to study Leopleurodons at first when he was graduating.
I remember when he was talking about like kind of what he wanted to do. He wanted to be a paleontologist, whatever it is, and I was like, come on, man, like that's cool and all, but
I would love to see
science.
I'd love to see Indiana Jones Max.
Yeah, say to wear the hat. That would be great.
That'd be great. I'd love.
I love the fact that he's figured out exactly what year he can run for president too.
Well, yeah, one of our other buddies, he'd always walk up to him and be like, Mr. President. He'd always say that, and it's just like he's like, yeah, I'll be a Secret Service. It's like, yeah,
that would be great. I hope he calls too, and he's like, all right, you said you would.
Hey guys, guess what? I'm starting a career in politics.
I would vote for Max Atkins, and you should too.
Dude, yeah, it's like
write him in on the ballot. He doesn't even have to run. Just write him in.
2020.
Start doing that, Vic. Max, you have one presidential vote every time, every election.
There will always be one
me
person
voting for you.
Who'd you vote for president this year? Maxwell Atkins.
Maxwell Atkins. Like, who's he? What is he? Is he a Republican? I don't know.
No.
He's my friend.
He's a physicist.
Yeah. What was he, like Neil deGrasse Tyson? It's like, no. He's like Max Atkins.
I think the man's got a good career. I think he could do it. He's got a good head on his shoulders.
But see,
smart guy.
Especially the last time that I talked to him, he was talking about going into the Peace Corps.
Yeah.
So like
I heard
that just adds to that like presidential like. Yeah.
Yeah, and, he's building a case. Eagle Scout. He's building a case, that's what he's trying to do. Like,
he might already be an Eagle Scout, and like I'm pretty sure every president that has been was an Eagle Scout.
He's gonna run for president,
or I don't know.
He's gonna run for president, but he's not gonna be the Max we know. He's gonna be like a bodybuilder Max. You come out of there and he's just gonna be ripped,
dude.
Like war change person. He'd be smart Max, but with that like. Exactly.
Sit down and listen to me talk about science.
He's got two half sleeves.
Okay. And it's just all equations.
Exactly.
The black hole is headed directly for Earth.
He's a master sniper. He can like calculate everything. He doesn't need any of those gadgets. He can do it all in his head. He's just like he's got some wanted level next shit where he's
master sniper physicist that designs a gun that's big enough to like
what do you guys love
destroy an asteroid.
What are you guys doing? Why were you guys digressing about me?
It's an homage.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah,
it's not anything bad.
We're hyping you up.
We're saying that you could be the president. I mean, like that's not bad.
Yeah, we're building your case. That's what you're doing right now too.
Come back, Max. We need to get him on the show.
I'll be his campaign manager. I'm down. All right. That was a good digression.
Yeah, with that over, who wants to kick us off this week?
I mean, you got Yo's up on screen. Let's do it, man.
Well, they don't see that.
Yeah. Well, there's backstory to the backstory.
If it will, wait a second. I gotta do that. Man, see, so many. Still figuring stuff out. You probably hear my mouse clicks but that's okay. I gotta move this. And then this. Maybe? Possibly? Haha! There we go. Hey. So my article is about researchers taking like a lot of problems with the environment kind of revolve around CO2, which is a greenhouse gas, which traps heat, and you breathe that out, and it's emitted by cars and all sorts of crazy crap. And there's so much of it that, like, a lot, we've said in, like, past streams and stuff that it's possible that trees on Earth might not be able to have enough power to scrub out a lot of that CO2. So you want to figure out ways to help with that process and actually benefit from that process. So apparently, I'm not exactly sure where the people are from, or the researchers. Looks like Professor Gunti Kim from UNIST. I don't know exactly where that is, but they figured out, or came up with a way of, like, taking carbon dioxide, putting it into, like, a solution, which then makes, like, you have a chemical reaction going on where it's like you're dissolving the CO2, but then you're also creating like a sodium bicarbonate, which is, like, I guess, baking soda. So you're creating, I don't exactly know what you do with that, but it's like you have this thing that creates an electrolyte that allows you to conduct electricity, and then you're also creating, that's creating heat and conducting electricity or whatever, so you're getting energy from that. But then at the same time, you're also generating hydrogen gas, which you can burn for really clean energy. And I guess a lot of cars, I mean, you can see for the little picture here, CO2 stuff comes in, breaks into hydrogen. You get hydrogen gas that gets sent out that you can use for, fueling stations or whatever. And then you get sodium carbonate, which is, sodium, and CO3 is carbonate, which is, I think that's acid, hydrocarbonic. If you see an equation like that and there's an H in front of it, that's a really good indicator that that's an acid. So you're taking water, CO2, dissolving it, it creates this sodium bicarbonate, which then the sodium, you can use that for electricity and stuff, and then you're just making hydrogen. It's just a new way to, like, kind of recycle or cycle out CO2 from, like, water. You could take it as a gas and put it into water and stuff, because taking something from a gas to a liquid, you just need to pull energy out of it, and then you can easily, well, not easily, but you can do it. It can be done. It's not like it's that crazy of a chemical equation or whatever, but I thought it was interesting, because I always think about, just worry about the environment, because it's like, I'll probably not have to worry about the oceans boiling while I'm alive, but I do
hope not.
I hope not, but it's like, I don't want to, just trash my place and leave it for the next people, like, oh, you clean it up. So if we can help the environment and get energy out of it, why not? Like,
I think that's kind of like the modern day man's resourcefulness. Man isn't humans, but the modern day, like, resourcefulness, where it's like, hey, listen, we're fucking up the environment this way, so now we have to figure out a way to use that fuck up to our advantage.
We gotta try. We're pumping a bunch of, CO2 in the atmosphere. We'll gather it up, we'll stick it in water, and it will create energy for us.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Like, we gotta do something. We're like, and it'll help the environment too. Like, bada bing, bada boom.
You're getting energy. You're pulling CO2 out of the environment.
It makes us look like the first
Earth
fuck up
life.
was planned. Oh yeah. We totally tried to rip holes in the ozone layer. We thought an ice age was coming, so we just did that to heat things up. And now that we're done with it, we're just gonna close them off.
I don't have it as an article, but it's like, apparently there was a fatty hole that was in the ozone layer that's repaired itself, which is like, cool. Yeah. Like, good. I kind of don't want to have spots where when UV radiation's coming in, it's not being, like, shielded. So it makes me think of The Day After Tomorrow, and, like, when a bunch of people are sitting on the Golden Gate Bridge, and there's a hole in the ozone layer, and a bunch of guys sitting there, and his hand gets burned. He's like, ah, and his, like, arm is all burned that was sticking out the window just for, like, a second. And it's like, oh, I don't want that, because the sun's that far away, but it will still. You can still stand out in it now and get burned. So it's like, shit. And that's with the barrier, with the atmosphere and stuff, and 90 million. It's like, wow. Okay. Yeah. I don't want to have to encounter that, because it really probably should have been his arm, like, whoosh, like everything there, like vaporizing. Poof, and he's just like lift up a nub, but it's just ash. Oh my god. Cauterized.
Yeah. Oh, you know it. Like, you gotta go to the doctor. You're fine.
Oh man, that's a bad digression to think about that. Like, oh.
Yeah, like I totally like went conspiracy theory level with it. I like in my mind, I was like, you know what? That's what they did. They thought an ice age was coming. They didn't want to panic people. So like, listen, we're just gonna open up some holes in the ozone layer, and then that's why they're trying to downplay global warming. Because like, no, it's not global warming. Listen, we're doing it. We can't tell you we're doing it, but we're doing it. See, like, credibility there.
I don't know. I got lost.
Yeah.
What? Well,
it's government controlled. It's the HARP, you know. That's what it is.
The HARP system.
That's what it is.
Who wants to take on this next article? Which one of you guys gonna take it?
I mean, I can take it. I can go. I could go. Yeah. So, a lot of different people posting about this. I took this one from the Berkeley News. It's a new 3D printer out there that uses rays of light to create objects. We're going to post it. I believe it's actually in the Discord right now. If you have
there we go. Am I finally coming through?
Yeah, I was going to say, I was looking to see if Caleb was still there. Yeah, we got you.
Yeah.
My mic wasn't being picked up. I did have a question about your article, though, Keith. What is you may have mentioned it already, but what's the collection process for the collecting the CO2 to process it?
I don't know if it even mentions that. Just says climate clock, produce hydrogen, clean fuel. Constructed a system that uses carbon dioxide in a water-based solution. It doesn't say.
So I know that like during maybe it was Science Talks or maybe it was last season, there was like a block that could like absorb CO2. So I wonder if they could like somehow take that and then like absorb the CO2 in the atmosphere and then somehow process that into the fuel needed for the system.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good.
Like drop it in there like an Alka-Seltzer, just.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good question. It doesn't say how they capture the CO2, but they just take it and put it into a solution, and then put it under some chemistry, and you get some energy out of it. 'Cause it's amazing how you can release a bunch of energy. Just by you have two things that like STP, which is standard temperature and pressure and stuff. You take like two liquids and you put them together, and the next thing you know, they're with the way that they're interacting, they're like generating a bunch of heat. Just because when you're breaking bonds and you're creating new bonds, like when you're breaking bonds, you're releasing more energy, and you create more stuff, which is like an exothermic reaction. But if you're putting energy into something to actually like to really break it, like break a bond, then it takes a lot of energy to put in to break that bond, but then you get two things out of it instead of one, so more endothermic or whatever. But they end up doing, I think it's just an exothermic reaction. You create a couple sodium carbonate from an acid thing and then hydrogen gas, and you get a twofer. A 2
for 1.
2 for 1.
But
that's how you do it.
They basically describe.
We'll move on to AJ's article.
As the CT scan in reverse, and it's a polymer mixed with a photosensitive molecule. Let me get back to it, and dissolved oxygen.
Okay.
So the
photosensitive molecule. So that's you put that. Okay.
They said like one of the hardest things was trying to figure out what could still be a liquid at like normal light, but then hit with a certain light array that would actually turn it into a solid.
Does it say anything about like what kind of ray it is? What kind of like light? Because you got like.
So it says a CT scan projects X-rays and other types of electromagnetic radiation into a body from all different angles, analyzing the patterns of transmitted energy, revealing a geometry of the object. So I imagine they're using the same sort of X-rays, and then other types of electromagnetic radiation.
See, I don't know if it was X-rays because it's like X-rays are bad. I mean, you're not really just spitting them out all the time. And with that, there's a little video associated with this that we're not going to watch, but that we did watch. That was like, it was like a little projector that was just like shooting light at this little tube of yellow goo, and then shapes were forming inside of the goo, and it's like a projector. It's just spitting it at it. I just find that interesting, like a reverse CT scan. So rather than like shooting it in, and like you said, like it's the difference in like energy as it's like going in and bounce off your bones or whatever. You can like see an X-ray, see inside your body. Yeah. So it's like I wonder how do you reverse X-ray? How do you like shoot at something big? Do this, look like this. That's interesting.
Exactly. That's that was the hard part for them, was like, how do you like?
So you have to like shoot light in a certain range. So if you have like a complicated object, you have to have all these, this perfect scan of the thing so that you can shoot it at. Wow, that's interesting. I just wonder what you're gonna like.
They said
what do with this. Like, you're gonna have this giant, huge, big.
Eventually, it'll become the replicator that you see on Star Trek and the Orville and everything.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, if you're using that to make stuff, you're probably using that to make also like ship parts. So we're gonna have like this 20 by 20 foot giant cube of this big vat of this shit that they then have this giant projector light shooty thing that's like ka-dong, 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 shooting light at it. So like crazy, and it's just out of nowhere you have like this big hull or a big piece of an engine that you're like, oh yeah, this is how we do.
They talked about like it changes manufacturing, like that screwdriver, for example, was it's an image on there. It shows like the screwdriver, and they actually did that around the screw or around the bit, so that way like it could change production of those, where you just have a bunch of bits sitting in vials and it's just shink. You could make, because it's totally like none of it is wasted essentially. Because all the stuff that doesn't get used when they make it, they reoxygenate it and then it's reusable. So like it's completely like every bit of that liquid gets used.
So it's almost like green production.
Exactly, and they talked about use in prosthetics as well.
God, I like that so much just because, from chemistry, it's like you learn like whenever you're doing a reaction, whenever you may be producing stuff, but you're not losing anything. So you can just keep the cycle kind of, for certain things, you can keep this like cycle going because you're not losing anything. You will lose stuff from human air and little atoms and stuff, but it's like that's like super green, where it's like, oh yeah, we reoxygenate it, we just grab more oxygen. I just love it. Just love it. The flow of atoms that you have around you, where like you're not just making all these new compound things and just spitting them out and having them just interact with the environment possibly in a negative way. You're just like, oh, we'll just put more oxygen or whatever, and now it's reusable.
It's a liquid we can use again, and then through the light.
I like it. That's interesting. Yeah. The little video is cool because at first I'm like, what is this? This is dumb. And then it was like out of nowhere, they're just like, you just take this little vial thing, or your little vial of goo, and then just, it's like stuff just is appearing out of nowhere in it, even though it's, it's being hit with light, but it's like, that's just cool. Like, man, we're getting to a weird place, like replicators and stuff. Like I like to think of what the ancient world, what some of those people would think, like if you showed them that ancient like scientists or whatever that was
witches
in math,
witches.
Yeah, that's like, what is that? I like it.
What is this science?
Yeah, like, man, that's what science turned into. And it's like, yeah, dude, and we're not even close to being done. I don't think you'll ever actually finish. I think you can.
Unless we blow each other or blow ourselves up through science.
Yeah. Science in the wrong hands is bad science.
Or mad science.
I guess bad is not the right term.
Yeah, because like the atomic bomb is not, I don't think it's a good thing, but how it's helped us, like, understand
nuclear energy.
Atom and all sorts of stuff. it's bad, but it's like, man, you learn stuff from it.
Well, and like if you think about it, like major wars, like between like the superpowers, have not been fought since then.
And that's one thing is like after, you know, we dropped the first bombs, and everybody's like, "Holy crap!" And we held that power over the rest of the world for like 4 or 5 years. It wasn't that long because they thought the Russians weren't gonna get. It's like, oh, they're like 40 years away from nukes. Then like 4 or 5 years later, oh, we got our first nuke, and now it's attached to a missile, so we can shoot it. And it just became like we've been kind of waiting throughout history for the first actual nuclear exchange between countries. And it's amazing we haven't had it yet. We almost did, but we still haven't had one yet. And it's just like, that's one of the reasons, because it's so devastating. And they switched from nuclear bombs like to hydrogen bombs, which are 50 times, not 50 times, like orders of magnitude bigger. So like hundreds of times. I mean, exponentially. I mean, so much. So it's scary.
Well, and now, like, North Korea, in current day politics at least, now North Korea is like, if the U.S. relinquishes their nuclear weapons, we will do the same.
That will never happen.
We'll give you 50.
A smaller country with, like, a gun is, like, telling you to get rid of all of your guns. So I have to trust... And
that you're not going to use your gun on me after I get rid of mine?
I have to get rid of my guns and hope and trust that I'm never going to need it. And it's like, well, you shouldn't have it. It's like, nobody should have them, but we're not at a point where we can interact with each other like that yet and be completely peaceful. We're just now, we're still settling in to being so interconnected.
There are those silos in Nebraska are still like, you know,
they're still chilling. Like, hey man,
they're well maintained. I will tell you that there is a guy out there that is so ignorant to what he's doing. He just tends that farm and doesn't go into that silo. Man comes by, pays me $400 every week, and goes into that silo. Then he leaves.
We're lucky that we don't actually like have to deal or feel like that's something that is looming over our heads like it was during the Cold War. Where they actually felt like, people actually felt like, man, we might die tomorrow. Like, the planet might, like, burn up tomorrow from all, like, Russia and America getting pissed off at each other.
Not everybody in America would die.
Yeah, not everybody on the planet would die. But it's still
well, just think about, like, if we went to war with Korea, like, China might just back them up. And if China backs them up, then we're gonna have a fallout situation.
There's no,
because,
it is not smart for China. We owe them so much money.
Well, I don't think there's a lot of posturing and stuff, but it's like you don't want a war. I mean, you get a bunch of money out of it, but you also like, because it was. I mean, war is money. It's during wartime when you're doing good. I mean, you're producing a lot of stuff, so. It's not like it's a terrible thing it can destroy you, obviously, but I don't think that. I don't know if the world. Well, I want to say I don't know if the world could handle another nuclear or a world war, but it's like it'd be fine. It'll go through all this crazy shit, and it will just keep going like it does.
Oh, the world will survive.
People, I mean,
there'll be some people, yeah.
I don't think. I really doubt.
I mean, but then we'd
have to bomb so thoroughly the entire planet. With like, okay, you set up a nuke here, and it's got to have one this far, so the radius. It's like that's not happening. Get out of here. There's no way we could actually. I don't believe there's any way we could destroy all life on Earth. That's putting too much.
And
we say get over.
To be honest, there's
beer.
Yeah, it's like no. You're like I'm gonna go start.
With that, yeah, there would be a certain amount of people who would still go into like bunkers and shit. So yeah, you wouldn't get rid of humanity exactly, but it would come to one of those like near extinction events for sure if like everybody decided to release their nuclear weapons at each other.
Maybe. I mean, we have no idea. We know the destructive power of it, but it's like, again, you'd have to assume. To assume that, you'd have to think every single bomb goes off, and I mean, you're gonna fuck up life, but I really don't believe we have the capacity. That's just we're falling into the hands of them. Them that are always watching you and controlling you. You're just falling right into
the Illuminati.
Yeah, you're giving them that power of, you could destroy the entire planet. It's like, go fuck yourself. You can't do shit. You can destroy populations, but that's it. No way. I don't believe it. I can't believe that. I know, hydrogen bombs are crazy powerful and just do horrible things. I know the destructive power, but it's like every inch.
Well, even Chernobyl, there's animals that are coming back.
Yeah, they're
to Chernobyl,
back, and that was not that long ago. 40 years ago, at the most. 30, 40, something like that.
But they go back, and
the elephant's foot is actually still just as radioactive. It'll be that same radioactivity probably for 2,000-3,000 years or something like that. But when you get it kind of contained, it's the
we'll turn it into a museum in 50. It's fine. And underneath us is the most radioactive thing on the planet.
And here's the elephant's foot, and you're like, whoa, look at that.
You can't stare directly at it, or you'll die. That's why we have this plexiglass case.
And I've seen people. I'm pretty sure there's pictures of people standing in front of it and stuff, and poking at it, and what? It's like, what are you doing? What?
You're dead.
You're dead.
You're dead.
Dude, that was such. There was a reservoir underneath where the elephant's foot was, and they were afraid because the whole thing that happened was there's two guys, and there's one guy's raising and lowering rods, and one guy's putting in water and regulating the water. Well, at one point, the guy had I think he had raised, I don't remember which, it's he either raised it so the heat got too much, guy let in too much water, flashed all the water to steam, and that's what blew the cap off the thing and caused the whole explosion. It was a steam explosion. It wasn't like a nuclear bomb going off or anything. It was just all that water instantaneously as a gas, so now it's has so much energy in it. Yeah, well, yeah, it's just that thing. If you took I could be wrong, but if you took a gram of water and you turn that into a gram of liquid water, and you turn that into gaseous form, it would occupy more space. It can't be condensed. It has so much energy. The molecules move so fast that they can't be that close. I don't know. It creates a lot of pressure, and so it's all that flashing to steam. So they were worried that the elephant's foot was going to melt through the floor, because it already did. It melted through one thing, and then plopped where it is, and then they thought it was going to melt through another and hit another reservoir of water that was going to flash to steam and blow up again. And so guys had to go into that reservoir that was radioactive water, hardcore, and go pull some plug or something. And as they were coming out of the water, they were already suffering from mild radiation poisoning. And so it's they're dead. I mean, right now, they're dead as fuck. There were so many people that just died, very soon after, or years after, because it's you have to go in, and somebody's got to pull the plug. Well, if we don't, it's going to irradiate so many other people. It's so okay, you gotta do what you gotta do. It's so many hero dudes died. You're you guys are badasses. Thanks for taking one for the team. Fuck, man. Hats off to those guys. All the work. I mean, it blew a huge hole in the building, and so it's fire, and there's all this other stuff, which all that smoke and fire and stuff was radioactive and stuff too. And so people were having to work in shifts. You worked 15 minutes and you got your lifetime dose of radiation. Thanks for helping. Go home. You just being on the roof shoveling. I think they shoveled all the stuff in the building or whatever. I don't remember, but just there for 10-15 minutes, and you already hit your radiation peak for your life. It's holy.
They'll be radiated again.
Don't get any X-rays or CT scans or anything like that.
It's dude. All the trucks that they use, all the robots that they use, are all still sitting there. All the robots that you think just send robots in to scoop all the shit up, that stuff...
Right them.
Yeah, radiation affects that stuff, so it's they're all just still sitting in there, just, radioactive. Yeah. Well...
So moving on to my article,
finish it up with...
There's a study being done by some university in Edinburgh, Scotland, that is going to last for half a millennia. They're trying to study the effects of negative temperatures in a near vacuum environment on bacteria.
So like
and so
bacteria in space.
Bacteria in space.
In space. Oh yeah. Sorry.
So yeah, I mean it's kind of an interesting thing, especially since it's going to last for 500 years. You know, we're not going to see the end results of it, but along the way,
I'll be there.
In the first like 24 years or so, they're going to open it up like every 2 years and check to see how it's
recontaminated,
surviving basically. And the last time that they did this was back in 2016, and I guess like 18% of the bacteria was still alive, which you think, like, in the grand scheme of things, that's actually pretty significant.
So this has been going on then for a little bit?
It's been going on for a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
But it's an interesting study because I think the first person who discovered penicillin kind of did something similar, where they were studying bacteria, and then they went away from the lab and came back and discovered this mold that had grown, and bam, there's so I'd be interested to see what kind of discoveries come from this, especially with like the polar ice caps melting and things like that. See if maybe they learn anything about the permafrost bacteria from these studies.
Yeah, there's a lot of that permafrost, which was supposed to be permanently frozen, is like thawing out, and apparently there's a lot of methane also has been trapped underneath like a lot of the tundra and stuff.
Yeah,
and that's a greenhouse gas too. So you've got CO2, and then you're releasing more methane, which is heating up everything more. It's like, oh, great. Permafrost, in air quotes, is now just ground. Regular old dirt.
It's soon to be tropics.
It's not permanently, pretty much back to old dinosaur times where it's like, this used to be a lush rainforest.
I remember the day that the insects became as big as the humans. I was
back
there.
In my day, you would get carried away by a dragonfly and eaten viciously, brutally.
That was before we tamed them.
There used to be giant turtles who fought crime. I think they were ancient ninja turtles.
I ate a thing called pizza.
You kids don't know. You'll never know.
What kind did they say? I'm reading right here. Bacillus subtilis bacteria? I don't know.
Bacillus.
What is it?
I'm not too sure.
Form spores. Bacteria were dried, so they form spores. Earlier damaging chemicals, some radiation. Revive the spores. Repair DNA. Okay. So okay. That's interesting. I'm curious what I like that fucking 500-year experiment. Like, I hope it keeps going, because you never know. I mean, you're like, some war happens, the next thing you know, I think it was during World War I that they were trying to prove Einstein's theory of relativity, or I think it's general relativity, whatever, and they had to do that by chasing solar eclipses around, and like during a solar eclipse you can see the stars that are behind the sun, and they were trying to measure if in fact big objects do warp space-time, you'll be able to measure the warping of the light of the stars around behind the sun. It'll actually warp it. And so there was times where they were like hanging out, the researchers in like some country, and they're like, it was something like they had to ditch all their equipment because it's in the middle of a war. It's like World War I. So like, oh well, you don't get to have this here because we think you're the enemy, so you have to leave this here and leave. And so they had to like ditch a lot of their stuff. I mean, it was tough because it's not like every year a solar eclipse happens. It's like every couple of years. Like it's rare, but it's it happens somewhere on Earth.
Yeah,
but
so
it's
you're literally chasing around the Earth.
And that's what they were doing. They were like predicting them and having to like chase them around, and then finally were able to get the pictures they needed and prove.
Speaking of eclipses, I guess during the lunar eclipse, a meteor hit the moon.
Oh, cool! I'll have to look that up.
Another kind of tiny squib article, but
purple, like red, purple blood, super blood, wolf blood moon, whatever, and then also got shot. It's like I'm already like in your shadow, you're hiding me behind your light, then I get shot. Come on, man, that's some bullshit.
That was the sun that did it, bro.
Yeah, the sun just he's like I brought him in, I shot him at you, punk. Damn it, that was my first. Thanks, bro.
I fart in your general direction.
I wanted everyone to see your
that was
failures.
a start.
Like, yeah, I shot in your general direction. Sorry about that. Hey, man, sorry you didn't hit us. He hit the moon. I mean, he'll take it.
That guy's a champ. He's taking quite a few.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, look at him. He's taking quite a few shots.
That guy needs to retire. Like, get out of there, man.
Yeah.
Get a new moon.
I think the moon's actually trying to, like, I think it's eventually going to escape.
It
I don't
will.
think it's actually going to crash into us. Like, it'll eventually be like, man, fuck you, and push itself away. Like, I'm done. Like, bye.
Oh, no, I'm flying towards the sun.
Thanks for helping out. Yeah. Wrong way. You get me back. Like, dude.
I can't do it. I can't escape it.
I'm going to go. You're coming down with me. I'm like, no. Drags down the whole solar system. Jupiter's like hanging out there like, what happened to Mars and all that? What happened in there? The moon went rogue. Took down Earth, Venus, dragged in Mars.
What caused it? Didgeridoo army.
Yeah, these 3 stupid humans came up with 50,000 people and caused a didgeridoo army to piss the moon off. Had enough of our shit.
To awaken a monster that drop kicked it out of the. You got pissed about it.
You know what? I'm leaving. Well, I think that's a good place to end.
Place to end. Yeah.
Good place to end. Thanks for tuning in. If you did, and catch us next time.
Have a good week.
Peace.
Hey everybody, you can contact us at thedigressionmethod@gmail.com, soundcloud.com/thedigressionmethod, facebook.com/digressionmethod, patreon.com/digressionmethod, twitter.com/digression541, YouTube, Google Play, and iTunes, The Digression Method.